Listen
Homeless
close, we
girl
gotta move
passed out in
now.
front of a
No
Hell's
time for second
Angels. He
thoughts.
saw the bruises and asked, "Who hurt you?" Some stories don't begin with noise. They begin with a body on the ground and one person who stopped. This is a story about a girl the world learned to ignore and a man who asked a question no one else dared to ask. She collapsed right in front of the Hells Angels clubhouse, not across the street, not down the block, right there where engines usually roared and people didn't linger unless they belonged. For a moment, nobody moved. People pass out all the time. Drunks, addicts, kids running from something they don't want to name. The city teaches you to keep walking, but this was different. She didn't twitch, didn't groan, didn't try to get back up. Her body lay curled on the concrete, arms wrapped around her ribs like she was holding herself together. One shoe was untied, the other barely fit. Her jacket was too thin for the season, the kind you wear when it's all you have. Then Ethan ** noticed her breathing, or almost not breathing. Ethan was in his late 50s, gray in his beard. Lines in his face that came from years of sun, wind, and watching things he couldn't unsee. He wasn't loud, never had been. He was the kind of man people listened to without knowing why. He stepped closer and knelt. That's when he saw the bruises, dark fingerprints wrapped around her forearms, yellowed shadows along her jaw, the kind of marks that didn't come from falling. The kind that came from someone deciding they could. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He checked her pulse, weak but there. "Hey," he said softly, not sharp, not commanding, just human. "Hey, kid, can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered, but she didn't wake. Behind him, the clubhouse door opened. Conversations died. Engines fell silent. Ethan didn't look back. He only leaned closer and asked the question that would change everything. "Who hurt you?" Her name was ** Marisol Vega **. Before the streets, she was just Mari. She used to braid her hair every morning before school, even when she was running late. She liked drawing clouds during class, always shading them darker than they needed to be. She believed people when they said things would get better. Mari grew up in a small house that always felt too quiet or too loud, never in between. Her mother worked double shifts. Her father disappeared early, and the man who moved in after him brought anger with him like a second shadow. At first it was yelling, then doors, then hands. Mari learned how to listen for footsteps, how to tell if a night was safe by the way a key turned in the lock. She learned how to stay small. When she was 15, something inside her broke. One night, after being told she was a problem one too many times, she packed a backpack with a hoodie, a notebook, and $20 she'd saved from lunch money. She didn't leave a note. She told herself it was temporary, one night, maybe two, but the streets don't give things back once they take them. Days blurred together. Hunger stopped hurting and started feeling normal. People stopped seeing her, and the ones who did usually wanted something. On the streets, power doesn't look loud, it looks organized. There was a man who controlled the block where Mari slept. He said he kept things safe. He said rules were necessary. Rules like paying him first. Rules like staying quiet. And when Mari broke those rules, when she chose food over fear, he made sure she remembered. By the time her body gave out on that sidewalk, she hadn't cried in weeks. Crying costs energy. Ethan Cross had buried friends. He'd buried brothers. He knew the look of someone who'd been holding on longer than they should have. When he lifted Marisol, she felt impossibly light, like the city had already taken most of her. One of the men offered to call an ambulance. Another said she'd be fine in a minute. Ethan shook his head. "No," he said quietly, "she won't." They drove her to the hospital themselves. Ethan rode in the back seat, steadying her as the road bumped beneath them. He didn't touch her more than necessary, just enough so she wouldn't slide, just enough so she wasn't alone. The nurses moved fast, IV lines, monitors, low voices. Ethan stood against the wall, arms crossed, eyes never leaving her. "Are you family?" a nurse asked. "No," he said, "just someone who stopped." Time stretched. When the doctor finally came out, his face softened. "She's stable. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, her body shut down." "Can I see her?" Ethan asked. "She's awake," the doctor said, "but she's scared." Ethan nodded. He stepped into the room slowly, stopping near the door. Marisol sat curled on the bed, eyes wide, tracking him like she was measuring the distance to run. "I'm not here to hurt you," Ethan said. "I'm the one who brought you in." She didn't answer, but when he asked if she was hungry, something in her face cracked. That was enough. Ethan returned with soup, bread, and water. He didn't place it in her hands. He set it on the tray and stepped back. Marisol stared at the food like it might disappear if she blinked. Then she grabbed the bread and ate fast. Too fast. The way people eat when they don't know when the next meal is coming. Soup dripped down her wrist. Her hands shook. Ethan said nothing. No questions, no lectures, no pity. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with the back of her sleeve, embarrassed, defensive. "What's your name?" Ethan asked gently. "Mari," she said after a pause. "I'm Ethan." She nodded, eyes never leaving him. He noticed the way her shoulders stayed tense, like she was braced for a hit that wasn't coming. He'd seen that posture before in soldiers, in kids, in people who learned early that kindness always has a cost. "How long have you been out there?" he asked. "Long enough. What about your family?" Her jaw tightened. "Don't." Ethan didn't push. He waited. After a long silence, he nodded toward her arms. "Those marks didn't come from falling." Her breathing changed. She pulled the blanket tighter. "Please," she whispered. "I'm not asking to hurt anyone," Ethan said. "I'm asking so you don't get hurt again." She stared at the sheet, fingers twisting the fabric. Then, barely audible, she said his name. "Daniel Rook." Ethan didn't react, but something old and protective settled into his bones. Daniel Rook didn't look like a monster. That's how he got away with it. Clean clothes, calm voice, a way of standing that made people think he was in control. He didn't sleep on the streets, but he owned them. He decided who stayed where, who was protected, who paid, and everyone paid. Mari explained it in pieces, like she was afraid saying too much would summon him. Rook claimed he kept trouble away, claimed rules were necessary, claimed he was helping. Helping meant taking first. Money, food, stamp, anything of value. And if someone didn't pay, he didn't hide what happened. Fear works better when it's public. "He said it was my fault," Mari whispered. "Said I should have planned better." Ethan listened without interrupting. "How many others?" he asked. "A lot," she said. "But nobody talks." Ethan nodded. "Silence keeps you alive until it doesn't." That night, after Mari finally fell asleep, Ethan stepped into the hallway. The hospital was quiet, lights dimmed, the world slowed. He made one phone call, then another. By morning, the clubhouse wasn't loud. It was listening. When Ethan said the name Daniel Rook inside the clubhouse the next morning, the room didn't go silent right away. At first, there was confusion. A few raised brows, a couple of men exchanging looks, then understanding settled in. Not everyone knew him personally, but everyone knew his type. Men who fed on people nobody protected. Men who hid behind systems, rules, and fear. Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "She's 15, he said, "and she's not the only one." That was enough. Phones came out. Quiet conversations started. Names were asked for. Streets were mapped out in low voices, not with anger, with focus. This wasn't revenge, it was correction. By afternoon, stories began coming in. Separate calls, separate people, same pattern. Daniel Rook took payment for protection. Daniel Rook punished those who didn't comply. Daniel Rook made examples. The picture sharpened with every voice. Ethan leaned back in his chair, listening. He didn't interrupt. He didn't lead anyone. He just made space for the truth to land. "This ends clean," he said finally. "No shortcuts." That night, Ethan went back to the hospital. Mari was awake, staring out the window. She didn't smile when she saw him, but she relaxed, just a little. "Did I mess up?" she asked quietly. "No," Ethan said. "You spoke." She looked down. "That's what scares me." Ethan sat in the chair beside her bed. "Then we'll be louder than your fear." The next morning, Mari was gone. Her bed was neatly made, her IV removed, no note. The nurse said she'd checked herself out early, said she didn't want trouble. Ethan felt his chest tight. Fear doesn't disappear when danger does. Sometimes it gets louder. He drove the streets slowly, eyes scanning corners, alleys, places people went when they didn't want to be seen. He knew where kids like Mari ended up when panic made decisions for them. Near an old bus depot, he saw her. She stood pressed against a brick wall, backpack clutched to her chest. And standing too close in front of her was Daniel Rook. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You shouldn't have talked," he said. Mari's hands shook. Ethan stopped the truck and stepped out. Rook turned, eyes narrowing. "You again." Ethan didn't raise his voice. "Step away from her." Rook smiled. "You don't know how this works." Ethan moved between them without touching either. "I know exactly how it works," he said. "It just stopped." People had started to gather. Not many, but enough. Phones came out. Witnesses. Rook glanced around, annoyance flashing across his face. "This isn't over," he muttered. Ethan didn't argue, because he knew something Rourke didn't. It already was. The video spread faster than anyone expected. A calm man, a scared girl, a voice that didn't shout but didn't back down. People recognized Daniel Rourke. And then the messages started, one by one. Stories poured out from shelters, from outreach workers, from kids who'd aged out of systems that failed them. Different voices, same fear. The police couldn't ignore it anymore. Neither could the city. When officers finally came for Rourke, he didn't resist. He just looked angry, confused, like the world had changed rules without telling him. Mari watched from inside a community center window. She didn't cheer, didn't cry. She just breathed. For the first time in months, her shoulders dropped. Ethan stood beside her, not touching. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "I think so." That night, she slept without checking the door every hour. The headlines lasted a week. Then the city moved on. Mari stayed. She met with counselors, ate full meals, learned how to sit still without panic crawling up her spine. Healing wasn't loud. Safety felt strange to Mari, not frightening, just unfamiliar. In the beginning, she kept waiting for something to go wrong, a raised voice, a sudden rule, a kindness that turned sharp. Even in the small room she stayed in now, she slept with one ear open, shoes close to the bed. Ethan noticed, but he didn't comment. He understood that staying was harder than surviving. Some mornings, Mari barely spoke. Other days, she talked too much, filling silence before it could turn on her. Healing moved in uneven steps, forward, back, stillness. One afternoon, they sat outside a community center watching cars pass. Mari traced circles on the bench with her finger. "Do you ever feel like if you relax," she said quietly, "everything will fall apart?" Ethan nodded. "All the time." That surprised her. She looked at him differently then, not as a rescuer, but as someone who had also learned how to hold pain without letting it harden him. "You don't have to earn being safe," he added. Mari swallowed. No one had ever said that to her. That night she slept 6 hours straight. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Therapy didn't fix things, it opened them. Mari wrote letters she never mailed, to her mother, to the girl she used to be, to the version of herself that ran because staying hurt too much. Some letters were angry, some were soft, some ended halfway through. She kept them in a folder under her bed. Ethan never asked to read them. One evening she handed him one anyway, not the letter, just the envelope. "I don't need you to open it," she said. "I just need you to know it exists." Ethan nodded and handed it back. That trust meant more than words. Slowly, the nightmares came less often. Her body stopped flinching at sudden sounds. She learned how to eat without rushing, how to laugh without checking who was watching. One day, she caught herself humming. She stopped, surprised. Then she smiled. A year passed. Mari volunteered at a drop-in center twice a week. She didn't wear a name badge, didn't need one. Kids noticed her anyway. She recognized the signs, the guarded eyes, the stiff posture, the way hunger hides behind jokes. She didn't push advice. She didn't promise miracles. She just sat beside them. Ethan watched from a distance one afternoon as Mari handed a girl a sandwich and said, "You don't have to explain." The girl cried. Mari didn't. Later, Ethan asked, "How does it feel?" Mari thought for a moment. "Like I didn't disappear," she said. That night, she added a new drawing to her folder. Not clouds this time, a road. People sometimes asked Mari how she survived the street. She always gave the same answer. "Someone asked me a question." They usually expected more, but that was the truth. One question had cracked open a silence that almost killed her. One moment of being seen had changed the direction of her life. She thought about that often, about how many people lay unseen on sidewalks every day. How many stories waited for a pause instead of a step forward. Ethan never claimed credit, but Mari carried the lesson. Stopping matters, asking matters, listening matters. Years later, Mari drove past the old clubhouse. The concrete looked ordinary, clean, forgettable. She pulled over for a moment and sat there, hands resting on the steering wheel. That girl on the sidewalk felt far away now, but she remembered her. Ethan had taught her something simple. Some people walk past, some people stop. And sometimes that's the difference between surviving and living. Mari started the engine and drove on. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it.